In this video, we'll have a look at how to display a list in Android. So there's a normal list view and then there's the recycler view. So we're going to look at the recycler view to display lists in Android instead of the list view. So some people refer to the recycler view as list view version 2. So the recycler view is a more efficient way to display items in a list. So you can see that it says there if your app needs to display a scrolling list of elements based on large data sets or data that frequently changes, you should use the recycler view as described on this page. And there they give you an example of the list or the list of items here in the recycle view. Okay, so this list is using the recycle view and this one is also using the recycler view, but also with the card view. So we'll also have a look at card view in this video. Now, if you go down, they just give you an overview of what is the recycler view. The recycler view widget is a more advanced and flexible version of the normal list view. So in the recycler view model, several different components work together to display your data. The overall container for your user interface is a recycler view object that you add to your layout, and the recycler view fills itself with the views provided by the layout manager of your choice. And then there's default ones such as the linear layout manager or the grid layout manager. And then the views in the list are represented by view holder objects. And these objects are instances of a class that you defined by extending this, and we'll do this in coding. Each view holder is in charge of displaying a single item with a view. For example, if your list shows music collection, each view holder might represent a single album. And the recycler view creates only as many view holders as are needed to display on the screen portion of the dynamic content plus a few extra. As the user scrolls through the list, the recycler view takes off-screen views and rebinds them to the data which is scrolling onto the screen. So this is a very efficient way of working with lists. So let's go to the Android application. So I just created a new blank Android application, and from here we can start with the coding. So now let's go into Gradle scripts first. If you go to your build.gradle file, so make sure that you're under Gradle scripts build.gradle, the one that says module app. Now if you go into that one, we need to add 2 lines of coding. So I'm going to paste the 2 lines that you need there, so you can just type them there. But make sure that your compile SDK version as well as your target SDK version, they should be the same. So mine is 28, which means that for my support library app compat, as well as for, you'll see the recycler view and the card view, both of them should be exactly the same version. So you can see there's my version, and it's the same version I have there and the same version I have there. All 3 of them must be exactly the same. So your version there could be different than mine, depending on the current update. So make sure it's an implementation, and then you just type these 2 lines of coding there extra. So it's the recycler view as well as the card view. And then you'll just click on sync now. Now after everything has been synced, you'll see a little check mark there to say that the analysis is complete, no problems found, and then I'm going to close that file. Right, so the first thing that we want to do when creating a new list is we want to have a custom class that will represent every item in our list. So you'll go to your package folder there and go to new Java class, and we're going to call this class, I'm just going to create a normal person class there. So it's a normal Java class, and I'm going to have a private string name there for the person. We will have, let's say a surname for that specific person, and then we can also have a preference. I'm going to say string preference, and that will be whether this person takes the bus or the plane, for example. Just a simple example that we're going to do today. So every person object will have a name, a surname, and then a preference variable of either having the value of bus or let's say fly or plane or whatever. Okay, so we're going to right click here and say generate, and you're going to say constructor there, and we'll have the constructor for all 3 of those. And then we're going to say generate again, right click, generate, getter and setter, and we're going to get the getters and the setters for all 3 of those fields. So this class is done then. So that's the first step of creating your own custom list, is that you need a class that represents the items that you will place in every item in the list view. Right, so after creating this person class, that's your first step. Create a class that represents every item in the list. The second thing that you'll need to do is to go and create a new layout file. And I'm going to go to right-clicking on the layout folder, go to new, and then layout resource file. And I'm going to change the constraint layout there to a linear layout. And let's give this the name list items. So if you click then on OK, you'll see a new layout file there. And this layout file will then represent every item in the list view and how it should look. So you can design your own list view here. So what we're going to do here is to create some pictures that we're also going to use on this. So I'm going to go to the resources folder, right click on it, say new vector asset, and let's search for, this is the first one that I want, is the bus. So you can get that by just saying bus there and you'll get it. Right, so I want to use this picture. Let's call it bus as well and say finish. Then go to your resources folder again, new vector asset, and we're going to search for flight, and you'll see there's the aeroplane. So we're going to use that one, and let's just call it plane. And then let's click on next and then finish. And then under the drawable folder, you'll see there's bus and plane, and those are the two pictures that we will use here. Now, just to make sure that these pictures are in fact included in your resources folder, you can go to the top and go to build and just say clean project, just to make sure that those pictures are now where they should be, and then we can refer to them when we drag to the screen. So now the next layout that we're going to use here, we're in a normal linear layout that's vertical, but I want to go and drag in a horizontal linear layout. So horizontally, I want to place a few components. So the first component I want to place there will then be an image view. So go to common, drag in your image view there, go to project. So it could be that it's not displaying here if you haven't cleaned your project. So I'm going to choose the plane there, and you can see the plane icon there. And I'm going to say 50 by 50. Let's try it 50 by 50. That should be fine. Remember, we're defining now how every item in the list should look. So we'll show basically a picture of either a bus or a plane, depending on the preference of that specific person object. So there's the plane. And what we want to do next is drag in another linear layout that is vertical just underneath that image view. Now for that linear layout, just make sure it's not matching the parent, but it's wrapping its content. Also for this linear layout, make sure it's not matching the parent, but wrapping the content. And the same for this vertical linear layout. We can also have it wrap the content. Right, so this image view is now 50 by 50. I'm actually wondering now if it is. Let's just remove this weight property there and remove that weight property there as well. And then that looks better. Okay, so we've got the image view, and then we have a linear layout that we can't see yet. So we're going to use the text view and drag a text view into that linear layout and another text view into that linear layout. So we'll have two text views there. So remember our person object, it's got a name, a surname, and a preference. So we want to show those data on the screen. So there's the preference, will either be the picture of the bus or the plane, and then the name and his surname. So for the first text view, let's go down and make this one a bit more bold, and let's set this text size there as 16 SP, just to have it a bit bigger. Then on this whole linear layout, let's just add a margin on the left of, let's say 5, maybe a bit more, let's make it 10. And then on the top text view, let's add a top margin there of 5, just to place it down a bit or to bring it down a bit. So if you look at your layout now, it looks something like this. So maybe on the picture also we can have a left margin of, let's say 3, and just to move it a bit from the side, and that should be fine. Okay, so this is now how every item in the list view will display. So this is very important that you give them IDs. So this one will be IV, let's call it pic there, that will be the picture, or you can call it, let's call it IV preference. Then let's go to the first text view there, and I'm going to call that one TV name. And the second one there, I'll call TV surname. So we'll have the guy's name, then his surname, and his preference there. Right, and then you'll see that there's some error there, and that's using this vector compat or vector drawable compat again. So just make sure you select this part, like we did in the previous video also. Select that part there, copy it by using Control C. And then if you're on a Mac, it's Command-C. You can copy that, and then you're going to go down to your Gradle scripts, build.gradle, and just make sure you add that one line there and say sync now. Right, and then everything should be fine. Let's go back there, and you can see the red error is gone. Right, so this is our custom layout. So what we've done so far is created a custom class and our custom layout that will represent the items in that class. So now the next thing that we should do is to go and create our own custom adapter class that will help us to set the items from this object to the items on every item in the list view. And ultimately our objects will be in a list, and the list of objects will be placed into a list view using this specific view. Right, so let's go now to our Java folder again. In your package, you're going to right click and say new Java class again. Now this Java class you can call anything you want. So I'm going to call this one person adapter because we're working with person objects. So I'm going to call this person adapter. So this is the person adapter class now. And at the top, you're going to say extends Recyclerview.adapter. And now you'll see that it gives us an error there. So you're going to use Alt-Enter on it and say implement the methods, and you select all of those methods. Now let's just declare a few variables there at the top that we'll need. So I'm going to use a private array list. So to this adapter, we'll pass in an array list of person objects. So I want to get hold of that array list that was passed in. So that's why I'm declaring it here at the top. And then as part of this, we need a public constructor here. So I'm going to say public person adapter. And what I want to receive in here is the context. And that context is basically the activity that will be using this adapter. Your second argument will then be, again, this array list that was passed in. So I'm going to say array list of type person. And let's just call this one list. So what we want to do in this constructor is to just set our people variable there at the top to this list that was passed in. And now we have a link to that list that was passed in, and we can use the objects in that list. The next thing that we need to create here is a public class that will be inside of this person array or this person adapter class. So we're going to call this class public class view holder. And this view holder must extend the Recyclerview.view holder. Okay, so that is the class that we will have. It will extend this one, Alt-Enter on it, and we create the matching constructor. So this view holder class, or the inner class here, will represent now every item that we're going to place on this view. So now on this view holder, we need to define all of the items that we have on this list, or on this specific list items. Now the first one there you can see we called ivpref, which is a picture. So let's declare it there. We're going to have an image view there, and we called it ivpref. Then we have two text views there. So we're going to declare those two text views also. One was called TV name, and the other one was called TV surname. So there we have image view preference for the text view for the name and for the surname. And now inside of this view holder constructor, we will now just take or get hold of these three components on this layout called list items. So we will say TV name equals, and you'll see there's an item view that was passed in. So I'm going to say item view, which will basically refer to this view. So it's going to be item view dot find the view by its ID r.id.tvName, and that's a link to the name text field there, or text view. And now the next one, TV surname equals item view again dot find the view by its ID r.id.tv surname. And then the last one for the image view will be ivpref equals find the view, first item view dot find the view by its ID. Come on. And that's also r.id.ivpref. So now we have a link to every one of these components. And inside of this view holder is also where we set the onClick listener, so that if an item in the list view gets clicked, it will get activated by this method. So I'm going to go to the item view, and I'm going to set an onClick listener. And we're going to say new onClick listener there. And it creates the onClick listener for you. So we'll come back to the onClick listener and how this will work. a bit later on. So this view holder basically just represents what we did in this person class as well as what we did in this list items. So basically it is holding a place for us for where to place data on the TV name, the surname, and the preferences, text views, and image views. Now let's go back to the top. So at the top we couldn't do this complete declaration of the class here where we extends because we didn't have the view holder class yet. So we're going to add some brackets there, and then we will use the person adapter. So we're going to say person adapter dot view holder, and that will be referring to this one. And now if you go down, you'll see some problems there because this one was referring to Recyclerview dot view holder, but we created our own view holder here. So it's going to be person adapter dot view holder, and the same here, not Recyclerview, but person adapter. Now let's go to this method that says the onCreate view holder method. So in this method, we want to create a new view, and we're going to set this view to the layout inflator dot from, and you can see then it wants the context there. So in this case, we're going to use this view group that was passed in. So we're going to say view group dot get context. Then on that we call the inflate method. So on that inflate method, we need to tell it now where is this items that we want to, or this custom layout that we want to use to show in the list view. So we're going to say inflate there, and we're going to go to r.layout.listItems. So that is the view that we want to inflate. And then you can just pass in this view group, and the last argument we'll just pass in false, right, and then close it down. So that view, or the V there, is now referring to list items that we have created there. So we've inflated that layout, and then we need to return that object basically. So in there where we return the null there, but remember that we need to return a view holder. So I'm actually going to create an instance of this class to say I'm going to create a new view holder, and I'm going to pass in the item view there. So this will be our item view. So I'm going to say return new view holder, and you'll see that is part of the person adapter. That's part of this class. It is this inner class view holder that I'm referring to, and I'm going to pass in that V. So what happens now when I pass in that V, it goes to this class, and item view here is now referring to list items. So on list items, I find the view by its ID called TV name, TV surname, and TV preference, or IVPref. Right, so let's go to the next method, which is the onBind view holder. Now this method runs actually for every item that's currently in your list view. Oh, no, sorry, not in your list view, in your array list. So you can see that as part of this person adapter's constructor, we pass in a list there, which is an array list. That list gets set to the people array list that we have declared at the top. So we will pass in an array list of person objects, and those person objects is the objects that we want to go and set in the list. So this people is now referring to the array list which could be full of objects of type person. So this method at the bottom will run then for every element inside of that specific array list. And you'll see the get item count there. We can actually go and say people.size, that gets you the size of that list gets returned if you call get item count. So basically that's this onBind view holder will run at the exact same time, the number of times that we have our array list or objects in our array list. So now in this you can see there's the index value. So we know where we are in the array list at that specific point in time. So what do we want to do here? You'll see that there's a view holder that was passed in, and that is essentially this view holder that we have there. So we're going to say view holder dot item view. So on the view holder there's an item view that was passed in, and on that item view we have now all of these IDs. So I'm going to say on the item view I'm going to set a tag. So you'll see that later on we use that tag in this onClick listener to see which one was clicked. So I'm going to say view holder dot item view dot set the tag, and the tag I want to set to, so this item view that we have there, we're essentially setting, or it could be this view as well, we're setting a tag to that view. So I'm going to say viewholder.itemView.setTag, and I'm going to use that people array list.get, and basically just setting the tag as the object that we're currently at position I. Right, so now the next one, we're going to say viewholder.tvName, and you can see I can refer to TV name or surname now. So let's refer to TV name first, and I'm going to set the text to TV name. So I'm now basically setting text to this view for every item in the list view where I'm currently at position I in the array. Okay, so I'm going to say viewholder.tvName.setText. Then I'm going to refer to the people array list again, .get I, that specific position, .get name. So I'm now referring actually to this class where I can call the get name and the get surname method. Right, so we're going to go to viewholder, to the text view, and we set the text to name. Then we're going to go to viewholder again, TV surname. We're going to set the text to people.get I again, and this time .get surname. Now for the image view, we want to look at the preference of that specific person. If it is, the preference is, let's say, bus, then we want to show the bus picture there. If it's plain, then we want to show the plain. So let's just do a quick if statement here. If the object that we're currently at, when it's trying to set the list, if we get the preference there, and the preference is equal to, let's say, bus, then we want to do something. The else will be if it's set to plain. So what we want to do here is to go to viewholder again, but now we want to refer to the image view there, which we called ivpref. So I'm going to say ivpref.setImageResource r.drawable. It's in our drawable folder. Remember, all our pictures are here. And there's bus and plain, so it's in the drawable folder, so it's r.drawable. So if it's a bus, we're going to refer to drawable.bus. And then we'll have this exact same line again in the else statement, but instead of showing the bus there, we will be showing the plain. So in the onBind view holder is where we set the items for every item in the array list. And I is where we currently are in the array list, at which position. So let's just quickly go through this class again. What did we do here? So we created a new person adapter class. It extends this Recyclerview.adapter, and it will be of this, be using this specific view holder that is inside of this class. So right at the top, we declared an array list. We declared the constructor there that accepts the context, and we'll come back to the context later on. You can see up until now we haven't used it yet. So in the person adapter class, or in the person adapter constructor, we'll accept the context, which is the activity that's currently using it, as well as a list or an array list of person objects will be passed into this constructor. And then that array list will be set to the one that we declared at the top. Now inside of this class, we have our own view holder object or view holder class that we will create objects of. And this represents every item in the list view. So you can see that we made connections here to every one of these items. So there's TV name, TV surname, and ivpref, and this is also where we'll have the onClick listener. And then the onCreate view holder gets a connection to the layout, and this is this layout there, and it passes it in as a new view holder object. So it passes in the view, and we know exactly where it's linked up to for the items for the specific view. So after that is set up, then this onBind view holder will run for the amount of items that we have in our people array list at the top. So that array list that we passed in, let's say there's 10 objects, then this onBind view holder will run for 10 times, and every time telling us where we are at that specific position and time. So we go to the view holder that was passed in, which will refer to this view holder basically. And we're going to go to item view. We set the tag. We'll come back to this tag later on just to set the tag on this item view there. And then we set on the TV name, the TV surname, and the ivpref. We set the text on those two, and we set the image resource on this for every item in the array list. And then the last method there just needs a count for your specific array list. So in this case, how many people objects or person objects are currently in the array list. And that we get by calling the size method.